Yep. Good evening. So last session we discussed about data binding. So in React components, while working with the components, we discussed about data binding. So how the binding expression is used, and we discussed about how to define, how do we work with property binding, right? How we can bind to any properties. So we saw one example of how we can bind and display complex data. Right? So we learned about how we can present this kind of information. So accessing data from a collection and presenting the data here. Now we will see some more points here. That means how we can present more complex data. How to handle and present more complex data. We'll see that. Now, while working with presentation of data, more complex data, we will see how example for presenting table, how we can present a table, right? Designing and presenting a table. So then here, presenting table here, yeah, presenting table here, how do we work is, means suppose we are having some complex data, JSON type data. So let's see how we can do it. I will remove this. Okay. And here I'm declaring a products. Products is an array. So the products array contains some properties. First, we will see general data here. In the next level, I am going to show you how to work with API, how we can consume with API. Here we have products is an array of objects. So we have name and some name, and we have price and some price. Now we have like this, we have few details, name, and here we have some name and price, and we have some price. Okay. I want to present this data in a tabular form. If we have to do this in JavaScript, lot of work is there. In JavaScript jQuery, we have to create rows. We have to create cells. We need to add cells to rows, rows to table. It's a lengthy process. If the same we have to do in JavaScript. But here, how you can manage simply, I'm creating here as products table. Now, just we are defining a table. I'm adding some class as table and table hover. These are bootstrap classes. Table have t header section. In that, we row have two cells. One is name, another one is price. And here I am adding t body, that is table body. In the table body, we need to generate a row. We need to generate a row for every record, every object inside this collection. Then how to do that? We write a binding expression here. And we need to read every record from collection. Then yesterday we learned products.map. Map will read every product. After reading every product, For every product, we have to generate a row. We have to generate a row. So you need to generate a row. And here in this row, when we configured the row, now row should repeat. How many times it will repeat? How many products are there? Right? And in row directly you cannot display data. Already you know that. In this row, we need one cell. In this first cell, I need to display product dot name. And in the second cell, I need to display product dot price. So that is how we have to handle. Right now, you can see the data is presented in a tabular form. We are accessing the data and we are presenting the data. If you want to display complex data, then you have to use these techniques. So anything you can dynamically generate. For that, first you should have good idea of how presentation can be done. Means your HTML elements and their hierarchy you have to know correctly. Which element to repeat, what data to repeat, those you have to configure. This is one simple example how we can present a table. This is an example. Similarly, suppose we have to present some other content. Suppose you see how we can use nested iterations. How we can present nested data. Sometimes object in object, in that object some array, very complicated data will be there. In that case, in an array, you can have an array. That means you need to have a map inside another map. It's a complex. For example, see now here, I will generate that here. We will create that. What we will do here is, so we will remove this data. Okay. This time I am just creating another simple collection here. So where menu, I am designing menu. In menu, it is an array of objects. Menu contains category. Category is a string. I am using category name as electronics. In that we have products. Products is again an array. So in products, we need again some string. We have like Samsung TV. So we have like mobile. This is some complex data. Now you have array in array. That means now I have another category. In this, I have some footwear and products. And in that, so we have like Nike casuals. So we have like Lee boot, something like this. Now I need to display this data in a multi-level hierarchy. For example, how I want to display this is, we want the presentation to happen like this. Suppose it should be in this way. That means number one, electronics. In this electronics, we have A. So this is some TV, and B, this is mobile. Number two, this is footwear, and here we have A. So that is Nike, and B, some Lee boot. Like this we want. This is the presentation we want for the data we have. That means what should happen? Now we need to display these categories in one level. Under that category, again products is an array. This should be in another level, second level. Then how you will present? Let's see. I am creating here heading. So categories. Okay. Here I will design an ordered list. In this, first we are using a binding expression. We have to repeat all the records, read all the records, then menu dot map. We will read every item. Okay. After reading every item, we will generate a list item. In this list item, we are going to display the item dot category. Item dot category. And you can see the categories will be there. Electronics, footwear. You know in HTML how to create a nested list. How do I create a nested list? Do I need to create a list under this or inside it? How to create a nested ordered list or unordered list in HTML? Inside list item or outside list item? Under that will not happen. Are you sure? Under that cannot happen. Shall I show? So here I'm defining this now. Suppose we have an ordered list. We have an ordered list and we have a list item. So electronics. And under this, I have an unordered list item TV. And another list item mobile. We have another list item. So this is some footwear. Under this, we have an unordered list. So list item, suppose some Nike. So another list item, some Lee. And you can see that it is working. So tell me, do I need to write inside or outside? You said inside, but I written outside. It is working. So here comes the key point as a developer. I hope you learned that in programming, we have good coding, bad coding. In software technologies, I hope you learned that computer programming have good and bad coding. Always prefer as per the standards, write the code. I hope you people know code analyzers. You learned Java, .NET or C, C++. Code analyzers. That means those softwares will identify the problems in your code. Problems means not compile errors. Are you writing code in a proper structured way? Are you missing any rules? Because in real world environment, we have to follow certain rules and write. For example, you might have learned everywhere in general programming that your trainer will say that if you can write a condition and we have a curly brace and a statement when true. And you might have learned, your trainer told you that condition, and without curly brace also you can write a statement. Am I right? Right? And you can write else another statement without using the block, right? But and you may thought that it is shortcut for that, but this is bad coding. That is completely not good. You may think that it is shortcut, but it is bad coding. Why it is bad coding? Because why curly brace are there? To tell the compiler where to start and where to end. Why you are not writing them, saving the lines? Then you are confusing the compiler. You are not telling compiler where to start and stop. This is completely bad. That is what your code analyzer softwares will do. That means output it comes, but it is good or bad. In future, will it have any issues or not? These things we need to know. I hope you people already know about various code analyzers. You already know about various code analyzers. I hope you already learned code analyzers. What are the code analyzers? PMD, Sonar, you learned about them? Huh? You know PMD? Eh? This is PMD. This is a code analyzer. This is code analyzer. And in this code analyzer, you see, go to the documentation. You have rules. Java rules, .NET rules, C, HTML rules, so many are there. Now I will go to some ECMA rules, which are JavaScript rules. I will go to best practices, and or I will go to code style. Here you can see if statements. You see, it says that this is okay and this is bad. Right? You may learn several shortcuts, so but we don't prefer them. We don't prefer. So that means the people who built that language, they say that this is a bad practice. Then who are you to try these shortcuts? And why you are wasting the time? This may lead to abnormal behavior of application. Initially, it may satisfy your functionality, but in future, it may lead to abnormal behavior, which we have to avoid. So that is the reason every software programmer knows code analyzers. We will see such code analyzers while working with TypeScript. So you can write in this way. This is good. It's working fine. But this is bad coding. Why? Because this is not a part of this list item. It is not a part of this list item. That means I don't want under that list item. I want as a part of that item. That means the good code is you put inside this only. Understood? Without that also it works, no problem. But a developer should know correctly what is good code, what is bad code. So that is the reason when you look at various examples, one programmer will give example in one style, the same example another person does in another style. Now you need to pick which one is standard. Right now, how to handle a nested list now? I hope you know now. Now inside this list item, I have to access an unordered list. This unordered list, ordered list, anything. This unordered list again have an iterator. In this expression, this time I have to iterate what? Every item have category. That category is a string type. And every item have products. This products is an array again. That means we have to use item dot products. That is an array. This should map. We have to map, and you are reading every element, and we are reading. So here every product, and we need to print that product as a list item. This product must be printed here. That means now it will generate the list items in this. This is how the data is presented. In JavaScript jQuery, you have to write nested iterations, nested loops. Now here we have to just use the nested map. Right? You should know exactly how the content is presented and it is configured. This is one simple example of how we can use nested iteration. Now tell me here, is this possible to do in the similar way In a drop down, can I present like this? Will a drop down supports nested options? Have you ever tried nested options? Can we present this in a drop down? What do you say? It is possible, because I hope you know drop down have option group. Huh? You learned about option group. By using option group, we can do it. Suppose I want to present this in a drop down. So what we have to do is, you want to define in group. So here I am writing another heading. So I said select a product. We will create a drop down. In this drop down, first we are creating iteration. So that is menu dot map. You read every item same. For every item, we have to create OPT group. I hope you know that. You know HTML have option group in drop downs. In this OPT group, we have to use a label property. To this label property, we have to bind item dot category. I hope you learned this in HTML, that option group contains a label. Inside option group, you can have options. Now inside option group, we need to generate option again for whom? Item dot products. We have to map. And here we need to read every product. And for every product, you need to generate an option. This option contains text. What is it? Product. And as per the rules of iteration, as we learned yesterday, every iterating item must have a key. Am I right? Key. So it is item dot category. And here also we should have a key. What is it? Product. We will use the unique keys for that. Again, here also OPT group, we have to use a key. That is item dot category. And every option will have a key. What is it? Product. And you can see that same type of presentation you can have in a drop down also. So that is what we discussed, that people come and ask, sir, little bit HTML knowledge I am having. Can I learn React? Don't joke. Right? Little bit HTML, little bit JavaScript. These type of people will not suit as React developers. Can never happen at all. You cannot work for real-time environment. You can learn. But what you will do after learning, you cannot achieve the presentations. That means even when you attend an interview, they give some screenshots, tasks, and they say that design this. And even today, we have seen so many people after learning React with experience, when a task is given to them in the company, they come and ask, sir, how to do this? If you don't have good, strong knowledge of HTML and JavaScript, these kind of issues you will face regularly. Because you should know how to present, what to use to present, what elements are used. So this is basic. So you should have good idea on HTML first in order to make the presentation as desired. Right? This is nested presenting. I will give this example how we can present nested iterations. So at least now, I hope you got a clarity how to present a text, how to present a number or a boolean, how to present an object, how to present an array, how to present an array of objects, how to present nested. Right? Later we will see some more complex designs also. Initially we learned how the data binding works with all this, how the data binding works. So now what is another point you should know here is React React supports only one-way binding. This is also considered as a drawback of React. React supports only one-way binding. It supports only one-way binding. One-way binding is nothing but in one-way binding, actually data binding is two types, one-way binding and two-way binding. One-way binding means it can read and present the data, but any modifications in the data, it will not update back. For that, how JavaScript updates back? In the same way you have to do here also. What is specialty about some other technologies? They support two-way binding. Then without extra effort, we can handle two-way binding. But here two-way binding work we can implement, but internally it is not supported. Directly React will not support two-way binding. It will support only one-way binding. Then what you have to do, one-way binding, that means, so two-way binding is not supported implicitly. You have to implement explicitly by using event binding. By using event binding, you have to handle it. That means implicitly it will not support. Explicitly you have to do that by using event binding. That means, for example, actually many technologies support two-way binding. That is one easy factor for them, but React doesn't. You have to depend on event binding extra. Actually, what is the concept I will tell you here? See, the point is very simple. Actually, we have, so a username is John, something string. Now I am binding this. So we are binding this. Yeah. So we are binding this to a text box. How to bind to a text box? Generally, we bind to a value property. To the value, you bind that user name. That means now the username will be displayed inside this John. It is displayed inside it. Now here, important is I do some modification here. That means we are modifying this John. We are doing some modification here. If we are doing some modification, it should update back there. But it cannot. It cannot update. That is one-way binding. That means only one direction. It can read the data and display. But it cannot identify the changes and update implicitly. Several technologies do that implicitly, internally. But here, it cannot do that. We have to explicitly do. Explicitly means what we have to do. How to identify that value is changed. How to identify that value is changed in text box. In JavaScript, how you will identify that value is changed in text box? By using events like on key up. So we use like on blur, am I right? We use like on change. These are the events, na? We have to use these events. That means we need to depend on events. By using the events, we need to identify the changes and then update those changes into the UI. So this is same like JavaScript again. There is no simplified feature. One-way binding simplified. You don't need any DOM methods. Without any DOM methods, you are using one-way binding. But two-way binding, again, you have to follow same JavaScript style. So React will not support two-way binding. We have to explicitly implement that using event binding techniques, event binding techniques. You can see that. So that means you can see. So here, technically, how we can handle. So let's put a text box here. Let's make some change here. Right. So here I'm adding some user details. Okay. Yep. So here I'm defining some var username. It is some John. And here I'm giving a text box, username and a text box. Input type is text. And in this, I need to bind the value. In the text box, I need to bind the value. Right. So here we have to use value. And to that value, we are binding that username, whatever username is there. Now you can see that that value is binded here. We will display the same below. So below, I will put here hello, and I will put a binding expression, and I will call the username. That means whatever value there, here it is. Now actually this value is coming from where? This value is coming from a variable, so which contains John. Am I right? Now what happens here? This value is showing here, and the same value is also displayed here. Now if I do any modification in this, it should update back. That is two-way binding. When it updates back, it should obviously update here also. It should obviously update there also. But you can see it is not. See, I click here and I am typing. It's not allowing to type. You see, read only. It's read only. I cannot type anything there. You can go to inspect. In the inspect, you can go to console. In the console, you can see the problem here. You can see it says that. So it says that child property for iterations, that's fine. That's not the problem. You see here, it says that you provided a value property to a form field without on change. Without on change handler. Now what will happen? This will render a read-only field. And that field should be mutable. And if the field should be mutable, change, then you have to use that with on change. That's what I told you. That means React supports one-way binding. It will not support two-way binding. For two-way binding, you have to learn how to write events. That we will not do now immediately. So we will do in the next level how two-way binding works. Just problem I told you. Because after you finish understanding complete one-way binding, then we will go with two-way binding. So in one-way binding, currently we are accessing data from a variable and we are using it. Right? Now, technically here, what is the point you understood is React supports only one-way binding. Two-way binding is not supported implicitly. What is two-way binding? Two-way binding is the process of identifying changes in UI and update back to data. It cannot do that. Two-way binding is the process of identifying the changes in UI and update back to the data. So you have to explicitly manage by using event handlers. Like you have to do on change. So like on blur, like on key up. So many are there to identify the changes. In JavaScript, you learned all events. So in JavaScript, you learned various events: on change, on blur, on keyboard events, mouse event, miscellaneous events, so many, right? So people who don't know JavaScript and all, for them, it looks like I am teaching some spacecraft related coding, alien script or something, right? It will be actually like that for people who don't know JavaScript, right? So it will be like Christopher Nolan's movie. You know Christopher Nolan? Huh? You know Christopher Nolan? It will be like his movie, right? Christopher Nolan is a very great director. Huh? He's a very great director. So Interstellar, Inception, all these his movies. You will watch movie Interstellar on big IMAX screen. You will clap for every scene. At the end, you will ask, what is story? Obviously, Matrix and all these Christopher Nolan's movies. Do you know story of Matrix? No. You will clap for every fight. By the end of his movies, you will ask, what is story? But you will be clapping, whistling for every scene in IMAX theater. Right? I have seen so many people when I watched Interstellar. Many people were clapping for every scene. And I am walking out of the theater. Everybody was asking, what happened? Finally, what is the story? But everybody was clapping for every scene. His movies are too intellectual. Even astronomers also don't understand his movies. Right? Such complicated, great vision, very attractive, but you can't understand. Without JavaScript, React will be like that. Understood? Huh? On change, on blur. I see some of your faces very confused, right? That is because you don't have proper knowledge of JavaScript. It will confuse, because these are all simple things in JavaScript. What is event? How event works? What is the role of event? These are basic things, right? So here technically React supports only one-way binding as of now. How to handle two-way binding, I will tell you. First, we will finish one-way binding. In one more point is there now. So never use variables to handle data in a component. Never use variables to handle data in a component. Why we should not use variables to handle? But all our examples till now was variables. Because I just want to show you general data binding, I used that. Never use variables to handle data in a component. So why we should not use? Already you know variables are immutable. Variables are immutable. That means they can contain data and structure, but it cannot change. And component must have data in only mutable properties. Only it will be in mutable properties. So then what to do? So you have to use state for storing data. You have to use state for storing data. Don't use variables. State is immutable. State is immutable memory where you can store data and you can use it. And if you want, you can make changes into it. So components are working with variables, but don't prefer them. Right? That is just for practicing some data. In the beginning, we discussed it. But really, you have to handle the state. What is the problem here? I already told you. Class component in React have default state. Am I right? Class component have default state so that you can use it. But function component requires requires explicit state. Function component requires explicit state. And you can configure state for function component by using use state, hook. We call it as hook. Later we will have a separate discussion on all the hooks of React. We will learn. It is a hook. Hook is nothing but it is a life cycle method. React hooks are the life cycle methods. Already yesterday we discussed that component have a life cycle. In the component life cycle, handling data is managed by this use state. There are so many others also, use reducers and all. So use state hook, it will manage state for your component. And always use this state for storing the data and working with the data. So let's see how we can use state. Let's see now how to configure this. So we have to first, as I said, this is not good idea. Variables declaration, that is not good idea. Delete it. Then without variables, how we can store the data, access the data and use the data? Let's see. First, you need to import. We have to import use state. So use state, we have to import use state from React core library. From React core library, we have to import use state. Now we have to use this state is, yesterday I told you that state is the memory where you can store a value and use it across number of requests. If you don't use state, then what will happen? It will be HTTP will be stateless protocol. HTTP is by default stateless protocol. To configure state, you need this use state. So what I'm doing now here, we will declare a variable constant. So actually the point is simple. Actually use state is a method. This method will tell what kind of data you want to store in memory. That means it is allocating memory. In the memory, you can store any kind of data. That means if I write single quote, then it is string. If I write some true, false, then it is Boolean. If I say 0, it is number. If I say curly brace, object. If I put this, it is an array. In that array, it can be anything. Array of objects, array of string, array of numbers. This is how we configure the memory. We configure the memory in this way. Okay, you can define some values into it. Suppose I said all, okay, I said electronics, I said footwear, like this we define. Now the point is, these are loaded into memory. But how to access from memory? How to access from memory? To access from memory, this memory should have a reference name that you define by using a constant. And here, very important. So I will tell you the concept here. Actually, use state, observe carefully. Here, use state, observe here. This is use state. And actually, use state, currently, if I don't define anything inside, first let me explain about that use state point. If I don't define anything, this use state, you can observe that this use state is a method and it is array type. By default, its type is array. Array means multiple values. That means use state contains multiple values. Then how do we access these multiple values, arrays, and use them separately? how to use those multiple values and use them separately. I will tell you here. See, in JavaScript, when you learned about arrays, in JavaScript, suppose when you learned about array, where here I am creating values. Values is an array. In that we have 10, we have true, we have some Samsung TV. Now my concept is I need to separate these three values and individually handle them. I need to separate these values and individually handle them. What is the technique called as? The technique of separating the array elements and individually handling is called as what it is called as. Destructuring of array. It is called destructuring of array. Do you know how array is destructured in JavaScript? Like this. I will put var, curly brace, id, and stock and name is equal to values. This is destructuring array. That means what happens now? The 0, 10, it will be stored in id reference. This will be stored in stock reference. This will be stored in name reference. This is destructuring array. This is destructuring array. This is general in array, right? Array ES6 onwards, ES5 onwards actually, it supports this destructuring array. Otherwise, what you have to do, if it doesn't support destructuring, then you have to say where id is equal to values of 0 like this. Now we can simply define like this. This is destructuring array. Now what happens is, now you can handle this id with this. That means if I am trying to print document.write name, I am trying to print name, then you can see individually it can do that. That means individually it can print that. So it is saying undefined. So why it is undefined? Here this values we have defined. Even I give an ID and a name, all these options, you can see it shows undefined. Undefined because this destructuring is allowed in a function. We have to configure in a function. Actually, what this ID reference can do, ID and the stock and name reference can do, they can access and use these values. This is called destructuring, right? The same concept here we have to follow. Actually, state contains two options. State contains two options. Actually, state contains a getter and a setter. Understood? State contains getter and setter. That means now this one, so we are configuring, suppose we are defining here some string. That means we are defining some string as TV, something like this I define. Now what we do is we configure this constant and we initialize some memory. So that means in the curly brace, because it is array type now. This is use state is what type? Array type. So here we need a getter and here we need a setter. That means what getter will do, it will get this value. What setter will do, it will store the value into that location. That means state comprises of two elements, one getter, another setter. Now how to separate those elements? We have to use destructuring. By using destructuring, we separate them. One is getter, another one is setter. That is getter I can give as get name, right? And for setter I can give as set name. As of now, you don't need this set name, right? So later we will set value. In two-way binding, we will see that. Currently get name. That means now this is stored under this reference. Now how to present it? Here we have to access binding expression. What is it? Get name. I'm accessing that get name. Just I'm referring that get name. That means here you can see. So here we are accessing that get name. And you can see now. So here we have some option inspect. So, and you can see here in that console, you can see in the console, you don't have any problem. You don't have any problem. And you see the elements. In the elements, we have the body. In the body section, you have the container. And in the container, there is no value configured here. Because you just defined the state, you configured the state. But how to deal with the state, I will tell you now. We will see that. Means we configured the state, how we can access the state and use the state. We will see that. How to set the state, how do we get the state? We have to learn those options, right? Let's see. What is the point first here? Use state. What is it type? It is an array type that comprises of two values, two elements, right? What are those elements? One is getter, another one setter. So what you have to do? You have to use a destructuring. You have to use destructuring technique to access the getter, to access the accessors. Those are accessors. To access the accessors from use state, right? You have to do that. That's what we need to define, right? So technically we need to configure that. We need to define that. So we need two options. One is the getter and another one is the setter. Here, remember, destructuring, so many types are there. Destructuring, so many types are there. What are the structuring? Object destructuring will be there. Array destructuring will be there. Currently, this is object destructuring. I use it. Array destructuring means object destructuring is this. If you are dealing with object, array destructuring. Array destructuring means you have to configure this in a square brace. You have to configure this in a square brace. This is array destructuring. If you are configuring in a flower brace, this is indicate which destructuring? Object destructuring. So it is an array type. So if it is an array type, then we have to configure as an array destructuring. Array destructuring. Array destructuring, it will get the values and it will use the values. Depending on what kind of hook it is. Is it returning array? Is it returning object? Sometimes you have to deal with object destructure. In that case, we need to configure that array or object. So technically, how you can configure syntax? You have to define a constant. In the constant, we have to use getter and we have to define a setter and is equal to use state and whatever the value you want to configure. So here, any value, whatever value you want to initialize, you can define this. This is how we need to configure the data. And generally, how to get only we will see first. Set we will see in two-way binding, how we can set the values. To get the values, you can just use the getter and by using the getter, we can access the value and display, right? So destructuring of array, destructuring of object, so many are new things which you will have to work here, right? Yeah. Now that is one option here, how to configure and define. Now see, all your examples you can try in this way now. So what you have to do, suppose just first you have to import the state and here we have to define a constant. And in the constant, what are the options to define here? So we need suppose products and another one is set products is equal to what? Use state. In that it is an array. array. So in this, we have TV, we have mobile, all these things we are defining. Shoe, something like this we are configuring. That is option. Now, how we can present this, we know already here. Ordered list, we have to use same products dot map. We have to read every product and present a list item for it. We have to configure a list item where we will present the product and we will define a key so that uses the product. That is the approach we have to follow. Right? This is working with the data, how you can configure the data. How do we set values? How we can store values? That we will see in next level. First, how to get and use it. That means we should not use variables. We should use state. We have to configure the values in state and we have to define the values in the state. Now, what is product? Products is a getter, right? It is a getter. What it will do? It will get these values and this is an setter. It will set a new value into it. That means new value means you can push because it is an array type. It can be array, it can be object, it can be array of object, anything it can be. You can configure any kind of content into that, right? So this is the first important example, how we can handle these options. So first you have to import use state and you need to configure this option. Now, another important point is when you are, now we will see one example, how we can fetch data from API. We will see how we can present a little bit more complex data, how we can fetch the data from API, how we can handle the data from the API. But before this, one more important option you have to know. What is that? Actually, you already learned in class components, the actions to perform on component initialization are performed. In class component, the actions to perform on component initialization are performed by using life cycle hook methods. It is done by using life cycle hook method. Actually, we have the life cycle hook methods like component did mount like this. Component mount, component did mount, component will mount like this. That means we have the options like component mount, component did mount, will mount, unmount. These are the methods which we are going to learn in next. First, I will show you all with function, then I will show you with class. Currently, our option is to understand how to work with function, then we will go with class. In function, later I will show you how state works in class. Okay, currently we are looking at state in function component. Okay, next point is in class component, the actions to perform on component initialization are performed by these hook methods. This you can manage actually in function component. In function component, it is managed by using a hook. By using a hook, we call as use effects. Use effects is a hook. That means I already told you that in early versions, older versions, we have to depend on a lot of class components, but now function components will support all the hooks. So whatever you do on a class component, similar things you can do in a function. And here, because function don't have a constructor, function can have a method called use effects. What is the purpose of this use effects? That means in simple terms to tell you that it acts as a constructor, but it is not constructor. It acts as a constructor. That means what actions to perform at the initialization of component, that is managed by this, that is managed by use effects. That means we want some actions to perform on this use effects. Generally how we write is syntactically use effects uses a callback function. It uses a callback function. That callback function will return some functionality. Use effect will return a callback function. That callback function will return the functionality. That means what functionality you want to perform at the time of loading the component into memory, that you can define on use effects. Actually, use effects will use a callback function and comma. It uses dependencies. It uses dependencies. That means it is performing some functionality. Do you want the functionality to be affected by any particular value? Then you can send that as dependency. If you don't want this functionality to be affected by any value, then you can keep it empty. You can keep the dependencies empty. Just like a function with parameters and function without parameters. That means function with parameters. What is the necessity of a function with parameters? What is the purpose of a function with parameters? What is the purpose of a function with parameters? Tell me. What is the purpose of a function with parameters? Function parameterless, function parameterized. What is the purpose of a function having parameters? What is the role of parameter? What is the role of parameter in a function? Parameters are used to modify the function. Parameters are used to modify the function. Obviously, they are used to modify the function. That means, for example, see, suppose here I am writing here a function. I am writing a function. Some print is a function. It is having a for where I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to 10, I plus plus, and I am printing document dot write the value of I. That means it is whenever I call the print, what it will do is it will print. So it will print the 10 numbers. That means it is going to print those 10 numbers. Suppose I want to print 5 numbers. Always it will print 10 only. This is designed to print 10. Always it prints 10 only. Then how you can modify this? Will you create another function for 5? Will you create another function for 8? No. Then how to modify this? By passing parameters. That means we can write count and we can use that count here. Am I right? That means now it will modify the function. I said 5, then it will print 5. So I said 15. So that means it will print 15. What is the role of parameter in a function? The role of parameter in a function is to modify the functionality, not to pass parameters, not to pass values, right? It is to modify the function. That means, do you want this use effects to be modified? That means, do you want this use effects to be modified by any value by chance? Or you want to do this the same work every time? If you want to do this the same work every time, dependencies can be empty. Do you want it to change its according to the situation? Then you can tell what is the dependency. That means based on which value it should change. Those are called dependencies. We will see them. If there are no dependencies, same work have to be done, then you have to do that by using empty square brace, no dependencies. So later we can use dependencies. So now see what we will do here. I hope you people have an awareness on ready-made APIs. Suppose we have a website, Fake Store API. We have a Fake Store API website. You can see this is Fake Store API website. This is online, so many free APIs will be there. This is one Fake Store API. Or I will show you here. Suppose there is NASA API website. We have NASA APIs. Let's see. This is official NASA API website. This is the official NASA API website. In this NASA APIs, you see browse APIs. When I browse APIs, you see this is all the NASA official data. That means they have so many APIs. I will go to Mars rover photos. This is one API. And you see Mars rover photos related API URL is this. I click on this URL. This is the data they have. This is all the data they have. Now I want to present this in my application. Right? NASA provides several open data APIs for general public to educate the public about space. So some they have private data, some they have open data. NASA has open APIs. Now the point is I need to present this. I need to present this in an understandable format of a general person who wants to watch the photos. Right? Then how you do that? Now for that, first point is a developer should understand what kind of data is coming, from where it is coming. First, you need the API URL. This is API URL. And it is returning this data. And see what it is returning. What it is returning. Entire data is one object. Entire data is in one object. In that object, they have a property called photos, which is of array. That means the object have photos property, which is array. Only one object is written that contains photos. Photos is an array of objects again. And every object contains ID, that is photo ID, some sol, how many days on Mars that is, and it is camera, and camera is again object. Object inside object. And see, actually this is one object. And in that lot of hierarchy, camera have camera ID, camera name, and it have another object called rover. Rover have rover ID, rover name. This is very complex. Where a fresher fail in presentation is, he will fail in understanding the data first. That means if you fail in understanding what is coming, then you can't present it. The main point first here is you need to correctly understand what is coming, what data is coming. Then you can present it. For example, see now, let's present this data. Hundreds of records are there here. We will present this. So let's go. And here we are configuring. First, we need to create a state to store the data coming. Right? What I will do is, so here I will create a constant. I'm expecting an object. So Mars object. Okay. This set Mars. So set Mars. That is a setter, right? We don't set anything as of now. Next, I am defining use state. And what you are expecting, an object. What you are expecting, an object. That means what is the type of this Mars? This is an object. If you don't define, no problem. If you don't define, it will be default any type. That means it will decide, because you know already JavaScript supports type inference. Type inference. Type inference means the data type will be decided according to the value assigned. Right? It will decide. It is not strongly typed. JavaScript is not strongly typed. So it is ready to handle any kind of data. Data type of the value will be decided when data comes. right? When data is initialized or assigned into it, right? So here we are configuring the Mars. Okay. Next important is here, from where data will come. Data will come from API. When that data must be stored into this state, at the time of loading the component, the data should be ready. So we have to write a method here. What is it? Use effect. But in order to write it, first you have to import it. It is also present in the same React library, but your Visual Studio Code have an IntelliSense. Through that IntelliSense, you press tab, it will import it automatically. But it is lot of imports, then better what you do, instead of wasting this, just you put that import here. Use effect from React. Use effect uses a callback function. It uses a callback function. Yeah, what that callback function have to return, and dependencies you have to tell. Currently there are no dependencies affected for this, so empty. And here we have to tell how to fetch the data. In JavaScript, you might have learned no extra libraries required. You might have learned in JavaScript how to get data from an API. To get data from API, you have a promise in JavaScript, right? What is that promise in JavaScript? Fetch. You know JavaScript promises. JavaScript have a promise called fetch. By using this fetch, you can fetch data from any URL. Or from where? URL you have to mention. URL is, let's copy this API URL, complete API URL, copy and paste. You have to paste the URL. Okay, now next point. Now accessing the data from URL, and because it is a promise contains pipe. That means it contains then indicates what to do with the data coming. Actually, fetch problem is whatever data comes, it will be in binary form. We have to convert the data into JSON. It is a general JavaScript method. So you can use external libraries also. I will tell you. Here initially we don't need any external library. Basic traditional JavaScript we can use. JavaScript have a promise called fetch. By using that form promise you can get. But whatever response data comes, response will come. This response data, we have to convert that response. We have to convert the response into JSON. That is compulsory. Because fetch problem is it returns data in binary, which need to be converted into JSON. After converting into JSON, another promise method will come. Here we have to collect the data. And this data we have to store inside this Mars. Then we need a setter. We need a setter to store data into that. We need a setter. That means whatever data comes, we have to store inside it. That means what we have to use, we have to access the setter. What is it? Set Mars. Into that, we have to send the data. Whatever data comes, that data will be sent into it. The data will be sent into it. That means we are accessing the data and displaying. So what JavaScript fetch method is doing? JavaScript fetch method is going to fetch data from this API. Whatever data comes from the API, it will return the data into JSON. After returning the data, we collect the data and we will set that into this Mars. That means this setter will store that into this Mars. Now what is Mars contains? Mars contains, as per the API, it contains object. In that object, what is collection name? Collection name is photos. So that means now what we will do here, that means at the time of initialization, data is ready. I want to present this here. Now I will create a heading and I will say Mars photos. And here I am creating a table. And in that we will put class name, table and table hover. So table hover, these are actually Bootstrap classes. And in that we have thead, in that tr, in that th, we will first display photo ID. So, okay, good. That means from this data, we are displaying first photo ID. Other details I don't want. I want camera name. Which camera took that photo? Camera have name and camera have full name. Two properties are there. I want full name of the camera. So here I will use another header, camera name. Camera name. Okay. I want the rover name which took the photo. I will use rover name. And I want the photo itself, preview. I want to see the photo also. Okay, fine. Now these are the details. It has lot of other details. On which day it is launched, on which day it took the photo, so many other. Out of this, we want to display only these. So we will put a table body. In the table body, now dynamic expression. Now what is the collection? Mars is not a collection, am I right? Mars is an object. In that object, we have a collection called photos. In these photos, we are using map. We are using map, and this map will access every photo. Will access every photo individually, and for every photo, it should generate a row. In this row, first cell, it should contain photo.id. You should be very careful in the capitalization. It should be ID. Second, you see here now, when you are displaying the data, the photo ID. That means it is displaying the photo ID. That means it is generating that photo ID. This is a binding expression, right? That means it can access the photo IDs. All the photo IDs are coming from API. Now, second, I want the camera name. Camera name. How do we get the camera name? In the next cell, to get the camera name, photo dot camera dot full underscore name. That is the property inside it. Now it will get the camera full name and it will display here. That is the camera full name. And we want the rover name, which rover took the photo, and that is present in photo. In that rover is an object. In that name, I think name is there. You can see here the rover name will come, the curiosity. Now I want to fetch the photo here. Then photo is an image. Now image, to image we have to bind src. This src is photo dot image, not image actually. It is a photo dot img src. This is img src. Okay, so photo dot img underscore src. So width is 100. So and height is 100. Photo properties, you can add image properties, you can define there and display. And you can see that the images also are ready for them. These are all the Mars photos and the details coming from an API. That means we are accessing the data and displaying data from an API. This time we are using plain traditional JavaScript fetch. So many issues are there with the JavaScript fetch. That's the reason we later use third parties. But we don't need a third party as of now to fetch the data. We can directly use this. That means we are learning how to get the data from an API and present the data. Right? First, you need to understand the data. If you can understand the data, then only you can present the data. Right? The way of present. And we can present in so many ways now. Suppose I want to present this in a card style. Then you have to use your bootstrap knowledge. If you have good CSS sense and knowledge, you can present in more better ways. Right? This is in a tabular form. I am presenting this data. You see, in a tabular form, we are presenting the data. I will copy this example. This is example of NASA API, right? Presenting the NASA API example. So presentation, your wish. You see, I don't want a table. Then do one thing here. So I'm not using a table. Okay. I remove this table. Now what I will do here is I will create a container. I will use the class name dflex flex wrap, and yeah, that's enough. And I will do one more here. Yeah, that's enough initially. Yeah, in this I will design here, I will put a binding expression. Here I will design here as Mars. Collection name is what? Photos. Photos have a map. We have to read every photo, and we need to present every photo in a div. Okay, and this div is actually a bootstrap class called card. I will use padding 2, margin 2, like this I am defining. And here I am configuring every card can have some width. Suppose I am also using W25, that is the card width actually. And in this card I will use an image, and this image will have a class name called card image top, and it will have height. Height is suppose 150 height of image, and src is coming from photo.img src. And below this I will put a container, and this is the class name, that is card header. In the card header I will just put here the camera name. In a heading I will print here photo dot camera dot, so full underscore name. So after that I defined here another option, that is the class as class name as card body. In that paragraph I will put here rover name, the photo dot rover dot name. And you can see that this time this is going to display in a card style. These are card styles. These are card styles for presenting the data. That means this is very popular style for displaying various kinds of data. That means we are accessing the data and displaying in a card style. That completely how you present, that depends on your presentation skills, right? Your CSS, your bootstrap, that depends on your presentation, how you are presenting, right? So here we are using all the bootstrap classes for presenting. So example as API with card style like this, I am using this one also. This is the basic point how we can present. Now once you know this, now we will see how we can use the options like two-way binding. Once you know this, now we will see two-way binding. This is all one way. You are fetching and you are displaying. Then how you handle two-way binding, how you handle interactions, events, that we'll see tomorrow, next session. Tomorrow we don't have session, right? Because many people are newly attending these classes again. Some people are newly adding. So for that we will give some time for them to fit into this. So tomorrow no session. Again our session will be on Monday. Okay. So and I created a new classroom group, and I will post that classroom group. In that classroom group, up to now whatever videos happened, all those videos are present. Okay, and from here onwards you have to follow that classroom group. So this is the new class. I uploaded all the videos. Notes also I will upload soon. Okay, all the videos are uploaded. This is the new classroom group. This will be permanent forever now. Okay, right. For online people also will use. This is Google Classroom group, huh? Right. Here I will upload everything, huh? Right. Then tomorrow no session, again we'll meet on Monday, huh? Right. Yes.